challenge of life is to be yourself in a world that is trying to make you like everyone else. Growing up and in high school, every teacher that I had throughout high school always taught the same way. I would get my books for class, I would walk in, sit down. They would have a PowerPoint up, and I would just sit down, and they would lecture over the PowerPoint, so they would either read it word for word, or they would just have it up there, and you would just take notes, and then you would study on your own, and then take tests over it. But not everyone learns the same way. Everyone has a unique and different learning style. I know my learning style, and throughout my ed classes here at Grace College, I've had the opportunity to learn more about learning styles from a teacher standpoint and from a student standpoint. And I've also done research and looked at what the professionals have said about learning styles. My sources come from the Journal of Higher Education on How Cognitive and Learning Styles Matter, Learning Styles by Sarvenze Hatima, and the Journal of Teaching Business, specifically Teaching Business to Learning Styles. So today we're going to focus on three different things. One is, what is a learning style? The second is, why does it matter? And the third is, how can you apply it to your life? So once you understand the differences, then you can begin to better understand yourself. First, let's dive into what a learning style is. According to Hatimi, a learning style is not in itself the ability to learn, but rather the preferred way of someone's learning. So not only is a learning style the way in which you learn, but it's just kind of how you prefer to take in information. So it's the preferred way to take in information, to process that information, and then to demonstrate the understanding of your learning. So there are four basic types of learning styles. There's visual, auditory, linguistic, and physical. So visual learners prefer to see pictures and images. So maybe in notes they'd rather draw pictures to represent the information that they learned instead of just having a whole bunch of words on their paper, because they learn through seeing. And then the second type is auditory. And auditory learners prefer to learn by hearing. So maybe for them, they remember things really well by people just saying it. So maybe they can go to class and just hear the professor talk and then remember what the professor says. And then the next type is linguistic, and so this is more of reading and writing. And they remember things better with words, so for them, writing things out helps them remember it. So maybe they have to go back and rewrite out their lecture notes or make note cards or flashcards in order to help them remember the information. And then the last type is physical, and so this is kinesthetic or tactile learners. So these are learners that like to learn doing hands-on things, so they don't remember information as well unless they actually do what they're being taught. So they need different little projects and things to do in order to get their hands on them. So I want you to think about right now, what is your learning style? How do you prefer to learn? So the things you can remember on figuring out your learning style is, first, think back to your own experience, maybe in high school, maybe even back to middle school. What kinds of things do you remember learning in high school, and the things that you remember now, you probably learned using your preferred learning style because it stuck with you the most. Another way you can know your learning style is if you take an online quiz. There's so many websites online, and they're just like little surveys, and you can click like from high to low, different things, and take the survey, and it will tell you kind of where your learning style lies in the line between the four. And then the other thing to remember is to know that you can be a mix of learning styles. I am a visual learner, but I also need to hear it, so I need a mix of different things, and it also depends on what subject, because you can learn differently for different subjects. Maybe in math you actually need to do all the problems instead of just hearing it, but in a different subject like science you need to actually do a hands-on experiment to learn. So it also depends on what subject area it is. So now that you have a clear understanding of what learning styles are, we can begin to look at why you should implement them. So why does it matter? First of all, it helps you to retain information better. If you're learning to your learning style, then that information is going to stick better with you. If you're not an auditory learner and you just sit in class and listen and then leave, you're going to forget everything. So doing little things to help you learn to your learning style is going to help you remember that information, which in turn helps you to do better in school, because if you're remembering the information and you're processing it the way that you need to, then you are going to better remember the information, which will help you to enjoy school more because you're actually learning and you're not struggling or falling behind. And so what does it look like to teach or to learn the different learning styles? First, we have to remember that it's not just the student's job, it's also the professor's job. In the teaching higher education, that article talked about how it's also the professor's job to make sure that they understand their students, and so they should know their students' learning styles to better set up their classroom, because if all of their class is hands-on learners and all they do is talk, then their students aren't going to learn the best. So they have to remember that. And then as students, you need to take charge of your own learning too and do things that help you learn. So if you're a visual learner, maybe you need to take notes and draw pictures to help you remember. Or if you're a verbal learner, maybe you need to, instead of just reading your textbook for class, you actually take it and you just sit down and you whisper read it to yourself to help you remember. Charlesworth, Pools, and Evans stressed in their article, Learning Styles in Higher Education, that the ability to self-regulate one's own learning and to choose the most appropriate strategy for learning is vital. Now that you know how important learning styles are, it would be good to talk about how to integrate them into your learning. So kind of like the examples that I already gave. You can integrate them into your college courses by maybe reading your book out loud, or taking notes using pictures, or meeting up with a friend and actually doing whatever activity your book is talking about. And then the second place that you can apply this information to your life is actually in the workforce when you graduate. The article about business professionals and learning styles discussed how in the workforce people tend to think that everyone is just the same, and so they present their business plan the same way, or whatever they're doing in their business. And so just remembering that when you're giving a meeting or anything that you're doing in your workforce, that other people learn differently, so when you're relaying information, maybe you need to do it in different ways, and this will help you better collaborate with your coworkers. So in conclusion, we discussed what a learning style is, why it matters, and how to apply it to your life. So today I challenge you, if you don't know your learning style, maybe take a quick online quiz or just think back, so that you can better apply this to your life, and then in return you'll get better grades.
I know it's kind of early, but I need a little bit of audience participation here, and I won't make you stand up or anything, just raise your hand. Okay, so who enjoys getting packages? Packages in the mail. Everyone's hand should be up, because packages are amazing. Everyone enjoys getting packages. What do you get in packages? You get food. I think food is the most important one, food and snacks. So I have to ask you, have any of you ever received several dozen live butterflies in a package before? All right, one. We have one. I would assume that most of you haven't, but that's actually what my mom and I received several years ago. My mom and I have been raising... How do I move the clicker thing? I need that.
It's just a bus. Someone bring up the clicker. So there's
My mom and I have been, raising monarch butterflies for the past 16 years, and as you can see, I was pretty young. I've been around them for a long time. So we ordered monarchs through the mail to release them into our butterfly house, where they could breed and produce eggs on the plants in our backyard. My mom and I would also go around and look on trails and in wetlands to collect eggs and bring them home and raise them from eggs to adults. So throughout this speech, you will come to better understand the life cycle of the monarch butterfly and learn about factors that threaten their population. Knowing these facts will help you take better care of this aspect of God's creation and help the monarch population thrive. Besides my own knowledge from years of raising monarchs, I have gathered additional information from several articles, all entitled Monarch Butterfly, from the Environmental Encyclopedia, the New Oxford American Dictionary, and Britannica Academic. So in this speech, I will inform you about the 4 life stages of the monarch butterfly: the egg stage, the caterpillar stage, the chrysalis stage, and the adult stage. So Now that you have a short background about my personal experience with monarchs, as well as a general idea about their whole life stages, I will proceed to go more in-depth about each individual stage. In early spring, a monarch butterfly lays 300 to 500 eggs, or 700 in captivity. Monarchs only lay on one plant, their host plant, milkweed. There are several types of milkweed, but the most common types are swamp milkweed and, ironically, common milkweed. These plants produce a milky white substance when cut, hence the name milkweed, and these plants are actually toxic if ingested. This toxicity is essential in the monarch's life cycle, but I will discuss that at a later point. The egg stage is honestly not a very exciting stage. The egg appears as a small off-white dot on the underside of a milkweed leaf and has a spherical structure with a pointed top and several ridges running parallel to the leaf. This stage lasts approximately 3 days to a week. After 3 to 7 days, a small caterpillar emerges, and this marks the beginning of the caterpillar stage, which I will discuss next. During the caterpillar stage, the caterpillar eats the casing it just emerged from, and then begins eating the milkweed leaf it was laid on. According to Britannica Academic and the New Oxford American Dictionary, the milkweed causes the monarch caterpillar to develop its vertical stripes of black, white, and yellow-green, and also uses the toxins in the milkweed to render both itself and the adult butterfly unpalatable or poisonous to predators. The caterpillar continually eats milkweed, sometimes stripping an entire plant of its leaves. Since a caterpillar's skin does not stretch or grow, it is necessary for it to molt several times throughout the stage. Eventually, they reach their maximum size of about 2 inches, which is about 2,000 times their original size. They eat a lot. After reaching their maximum size, which takes anywhere between 8 to 14 days, the caterpillar finds a safe place to enter its next stage. Using a spinneret that is located just under its mouth, the caterpillar spins a white silk pad that it attaches itself to, and then hangs head down. This is called J-form for obvious reasons, and the caterpillar remains hanging in this position for approximately 24 hours. Then the caterpillar sheds its skin and enters the chrysalis stage, my next point. And I do have a short video here illustrating this step. It's a little gross, but it's really fascinating, so bear with me. So then it shortens, and after several hours it hardens into looking like the one on the left. So after the caterpillar molts, the chrysalis is very delicate and kind of squishy, so you have to take care. It's very vulnerable in this stage. It hardens into this beautiful green color with gold details. In the chrysalis stage, the monarch undergoes metamorphic changes, which take anywhere from between 8 to 14 days. So that's actually when the caterpillar is turning into a butterfly. And the day before the monarch hatches, the chrysalis becomes transparent, and the characteristic orange and black of the adult can be seen. Now we move on to my final point, as the adult monarch butterfly breaks free of its clear casing in the early morning, finally entering the mature adult stage. So when the monarch first emerges, it is very crumpled and contains a lot of liquid in the main portion of its body. It pumps this liquid into its crumpled wings, inflating them, and this takes 2 to 3 hours. After the wings are fully inflated, this monarch has completed its last change and is ready to be released and fly away. Generally, adults live for 2 to 6 weeks, and 4 to 5 generations of monarchs continue throughout the summer. The male and female monarchs are both shown here, and they are distinguishable from each other by one main characteristic. The male has 2 spots on its hind legs, and the female does not have those 2 spots, so that's how you can tell them apart. The male monarch, monarch butterflies are migratory insects, meaning they travel to warmer locations in the fall and remain there through the summer. According to Environmental Encyclopedia, butterflies that emerge in late August and September put reproduction on hold. Instead of laying eggs, they fly south. So monarchs born during this time live approximately 7 times longer than the normal lifespan, roughly from August until March. Millions of monarchs migrate from Canada and the United States to Mexico, which is about an 1,800-mile flight, and compactly settle on hundreds of trees, as pictured here. They stay on these trees dormant until temperatures begin to rise in early spring, where they become active and fly again towards North America to find milkweed and continue their life cycle. Sadly, the monarch population is declining due to several factors. First, illegal logging is occurring in their overwintering sites, so it's getting rid of their safe place to go dormant. Second, the herbicide-resistant GMO crops are becoming more popular. These crops are resistant to herbicide, as their name implies, so weed killers spray directly onto these plants and the surrounding flora. Consequently, milkweed thrives in crops and around crop fields, so this is really killing a whole lot of milkweed and preventing their life cycle from continuing. Lastly, the loss of wildlife reserves due to land development is, again, decreasing the amount of milkweed that the monarchs need to complete their life cycle. So I would ask of you then, if you have any sort of garden at your home, to plant a few milkweed seeds, and therefore you will be taking care of the monarch butterfly and also protecting and taking care of God's creation. So throughout this speech, I've discussed the egg stage, the caterpillar stage, the chrysalis stage, and the adult stage, and I hope you've all become more familiar with the life cycle of the monarch. Now, everyone get ready because we're going to get deep for a second here. I believe we can apply a biblical passage to this process. God created the monarch to begin its life as a small and insignificant egg, but after a brief time, it transformed into a new creature, into a beautiful butterfly. God can mold us and transform us in so many greater ways than this insect. If you ever feel like you are flawed or you are not where you want to be in life, remember the transformation of the monarch butterfly in 2 Corinthians 5:17. Therefore, if anyone is in Christ, he is a new creation. The old has passed away. Behold, the new has come. Thank you.
Cubs theme song goes, go Cubs go, hey Chicago, what do you say, the Cubs are going to win today. I'm sure many of you have heard this song in the past week or week and a half. This song is associated with the Chicago Cubs, the 2016 World Series champions, also known as the lovable losers, however not anymore. Today I'm here to inform you all about the so-called Chicago Cubs curse and how the Cubs have been affected throughout the years, 108 to be exact. I'm sure you are familiar with America's favorite pastime, baseball. However, you may not have known that until a week ago, the Chicago Cubs had had a drought for 108 years from winning the World Series, the longest drought in baseball or even any other sport in history. As a team that has been known to choke, it is important to see the outside forces that have played a role in the so-called curse. This curse includes the 1945 World Series, specifically on October 6th, William Billy Cyannis, and his Billy Goat. I have been a Sox fan for most of my life, but I have grown up in Chicago and switched over from the South Side, the Chicago White Sox, to the Cubs. I have spent countless years in an extended family with a feud over which Chicago team is better. I have also spent many hours studying and researching the Cubs, their stats, and the curse. My sources come from personal experience and my grandpa, who grew up being a diehard Cubs fan, along with some articles such as How Billy Goat Cursed the Chicago Cubs by Evan Andrews, the St. James Encyclopedia of Popular Culture article on Wrigley Field by James McEntry, The Curse of a Loyal Sports Fan by Jerry Useem, and statistics from Statista. I'm going to start off by talking about the history of the Chicago Cubs and Wrigley Field, go on to the curse, and then finish up with the effects of the curse in the current World Series. So to begin, once you have been informed about the history of the Chicago Cubs baseball club and where their successes came from, you will see how this so-called curse has played a role in the blame game as to why the Cubs have been called the lovable losers. Let's take a look at the Cubs. They were founded in 1867 and were formerly known as the White Stockings. However, in 1903, their name was changed to the Chicago Cubs. Their field is located in the north side of Chicago called Wrigley Field, and they are part of the National League Central Division. To put it all in perspective, according to Statista from 1906 to 2005, the Cubs had only won 2 World Series championships, and these were in 1907 and 1908, so they were back-to-back. Until this year, they had had 108 years of losing, and had not won the pennant in 71 years, which is like their league title. And both were accomplished by the 2016 this year. I found most of this information from the St. James Encyclopedia of Popular Culture, and from the article Wrigley Field by Jason McEntry. Wrigley Wrigley Field came into existence in 1914 with a seating capacity of 38,902, which is one of the smallest in the Major League. The opposing teams that play there aren't really a fan of it because of the Chicago winds coming off of the lake. After hearing about some of the history of the Chicago Cubs, let's take a look at the curse that has caused them so much heartache these past 108 years. The curse that started it all was the Billy Goat Curse, which was on October 6, 1945. The Cubs were up 2-1 versus the Detroit Tigers, and they were going into Game 4 and were predicted to win. However, according to Evan Andrews' article, How a Billy Goat Cursed the Chicago Cubs, when William Cyanis brought his goat into Game 4 and was asked to leave, the Chicago Cubs were cursed. It has been said that after P.K. Wrigley, which was the Cubs owner at the time, asked Cyanis to leave, he was mad and hexed the Cubs, and they indeed did end up losing the game. At which point he sent a telegram saying, "The Cubs are not going to win anymore, they're not going anywhere." Other phenomena that has happened since is in 1969, the Cubs were swept by the Mets after a black cat crossed the field. And in 2003, when they were 5 outs away from the World Series, a fan, whose name shouldn't be said, blocks a pop-up that could have been caught, causing the Cubs to lose. Now that you have a sense of why the curse is a defining moment in the Cubs' history and has been to blame all of these years, coupled with other phenomena that has happened since, it's time to take a look at the Cubs fan base and how far they have come from the curse they were under. From the article, The Curse of the Loyal Sports Fan, since World War II, Moskowitz calculated the team finished last or second to last in the standings more than 40% of the time. The odds of this happening are 527 to 1. Not to mention, for the crosstown White Sox, a 10% dip in winning percentage translated to a 12% drop in attendance. However, for the Cubs, it was only 6% drop, which is the smallest of any MLB team. This shows the fans' insensitivity to not only the prices, but their losses. They also have the second highest ticket price in all of the Major League. From 2000 to 2014, they had the 8th worst record, but still drew more fans than all but 4 Major League clubs. According to Statista, their followers on Twitter increased from 60,000 to 1,162,000 from 2011 to 2016. To continue with the past 2 years, in 2015, the Cubs almost made it to the World Series but fell short. They played the New York Mets and lost in 4 games, 3-1. However, this year they actually made it. Down 3-1 versus the Cleveland Indians, they came back and won both games 5 and 6, causing it to go into the 7th game, and won against all odds in the 10th inning. The curse was broken with the World Series championship being brought back home to the Chicago Cubs after 108 years. To review, I have gone over the Cubs and Wrigley Field, talking about their 108-year drought and the field's history, the curse, the Billy Goat Curse, and other phenomena since, and thirdly, the effects of the curse and the current World Series. Speaking about their fan base, and finally, the past 2 years with their success this year. To conclude, commentators, sports analysts, fans, and even opponents have believed that this curse was to blame for the past 108 years of drought for the Cubs. Whether you believe it or not, in Game 7 of the World Series on November 2nd, 2016, the Cubs pulled off the win in the 10th inning. So this curse has either been broken or proven to be false all these years. Either way, it is time to fly the W for the 2016 World Series champs, the lovable, now winners, the Chicago Cubs. Thank you.
Okay. Have you ever thought you were in love with someone, then realized that you're just staring in a mirror for 20 minutes? This is a tweet from 2014 from a man named Kanye West, who I will be talking about today. Everyone knows who Kanye West is. He has been in the spotlight for more than a decade now. He has been the center of countless memes, crazy Twitter rants, and many celebrity feuds. He also claims that he will be running for president in 2020, so Trump already has a competitor. But many people do not know how he got his start into the music scene. I have spent multiple hours researching this very interesting man, and have pulled information from various sources, such as the book Icons of Hip Hop, an Encyclopedia of Music and Culture by Mickey Hess, the article A Hoodie So Comfy It's Worth $400 by Aaron Hutchin, and tweets from Kanye West himself. Today I will be talking about Kanye's eras or albums, Kanye's personal life, and Kanye's fashion line. Kanye West is known for a lot of things, but the most obvious is his passion for his music, which is split up into seven different albums that his fan calls his different eras because they all sound different. Kanye was such a successful music producer before he entered the rap scene. He was always in the background of the music, and that bothered him for a while. Eventually, he wanted to give up his own music a try, and he started pursuing a rapping career of his own. Eventually, he was signed to Rockefeller Records. In 2002, Kanye West was involved in a very serious car accident. It left him with a shattered jaw, and it resulted in him having his jaw wired shut by the doctors. This led to his first single as his motivation, called Through the Wire, where he raps about making it through hard times no matter what the circumstances given to you are. This was released with his first album, The College Dropout. It won the Grammy for Rap Album of the Year in 2004. He released his second album the next year, Late Registration, where it also peaked at #1 and won Best Rap Album of the Year. In 2007, Kanye released his third album, Graduation, that also peaked at #1, won Best Rap Album of the Year, and it also brought out West's famous collaboration with electronic duo Daft Punk to create his single Stronger. In 2008, Kanye released 808 and Heartbreaks. The album peaked at #1, but only got nominated for 2 Grammys. Fans think that West's incident at the VMAs, where he interrupted Taylor Swift, led him to go empty-handed that year, and that made Kanye West very upset, and he went on a Twitter rant about it. In 2010, Kanye came back and won Best Rap Album of the Year for his album My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, and 3 years later, Kanye came out with his iconic album that gave him his own nickname, Yeezus. He went home empty-handed that award season also. Kanye's 7th and most recent album came out this past February, along with a very controversial single, Famous, in the life of Pablo. Now that we have looked at Kanye's professional music life and the success that's come with it, we will take a look at his personal life. Kanye West is married to Kim Kardashian West. They got married in 2014 in Florence, Italy, and they dropped about $2.5 million for their perfect wedding. Kim and Kanye have 2 children together. North is 3 and Satan is 11 months old. Kanye makes it very clear that he loves his family, and one of my favorite West family moments is the music video to the emotional song Only One by Kanye. It's actually written about his mother who passed away, but the music video shows him and North being together, and it's just really sweet and touching. He clearly loves his daughter, even though Kim recently said in an interview that North stole Kanye's iPhone that contained the original versions of the songs on his newest album, The Life of Pablo, and flushed it down the toilet, and the raps were never recovered. So now we know that Kanye West has had a very successful rap career and a family to take care of, but he still follows another one of his passions, which is fashion design. According to Hutchin, Kanye invented the concept of athleisure. Athleisure is the blend of casual leisure wear that you could also go to the gym in.
saying that he has shown the world that it is okay to wear joggers and a t-shirt out and about. Big deal. His line of clothing comes down to a steep price though, where a drawstring hoodie costs a mere $400. Kanye also started designing Yeezys, his shoe brand that's very popular, for babies this year, so that's cool. Kanye seems to plant his new line of fashion around his new albums, so they kind of come out at the same time, they can promote each other. Okay, so today we talked about Kanye's different albums and the success it brought for him and his family and the love he has for them, and the passion Kanye has for fashion. This speech proves that Kanye West is a busy, passionate guy who juggles his career, family, and passions, while still finding the time to love himself a lot. With that in mind, I want to close with another tweet from Kanye himself. You may be talented, but you're not Kanye West. Thank you.
You may be talented, but you're not Kanye.
Imagine you are climbing a set of stairs and the staircase is really tall, so you've been putting forth a lot of work and energy towards reaching the top. Then all of a sudden you hit a glass ceiling. You can't go up any further. You can see the top of the stairs, but you're unable to reach them and make it the rest of the way up. This is similar to what a lot of women face in the workforce when trying to move up. According to the Oxford Reference Online, the term glass ceiling is defined as an invisible artificial barriers that can limit the career advancement of employees who are women and minorities. If anyone goes into the business jobs and wants to move up, male or female, it's important to understand restrictions that some face. On the other hand, if you run a business and see women not getting treated equal in opportunity, it's important to know why and how to fix it. I find the glass ceiling imperative because I've studied it once before and I'm passionate about feminist topics such as this one. Some scholarly journals I used in my research are Is There a Glass Ceiling Over Europe by Luigi Lampala and others, Shattering the Glass Ceiling by Alison Aaron and Betty Seed, and The Glass Ceiling in Executive Careers by Suhat Ezzeddin and others. I also used a couple statista charts in my research titled Female to Male Ratio in Labor Force Participation in Selected Countries in 2012 and infographic Women's Evolving Role in the Labor Force. Today I will be talking about who the glass ceiling affects, ways the glass ceiling can change, and what pre-career women are thinking. Before one can fully understand the glass ceiling and think about changing it, one must first understand who it is affecting. As I stated earlier, the glass ceiling affects women and minorities. Gender is the biggest issue of this, but race and ethnicity also apply. And women who are of minorities struggle the most. The glass ceiling is not just a problem in the US. In the article, Is There a Glass Ceiling Over Europe? Written by Luigi Lampala, a professor of economics, states that in Spain there was a glass ceiling for the more educated and not the less educated. And this is based off of sample groups of different education levels. They found that the gender wage gap was expanding over the wage distribution for the groups of higher educated people, and found that less educated groups, the gender wage gap was wider at the bottom than the top. More educated women struggle more because they have harder competition and have a more difficult opportunity to move up. The glass ceiling has been affecting women and minorities since the 1990s and will continue to affect them. However, there are a few ways the glass ceiling can change. In the article Shattering the Glass Ceiling by Allison Ehring, who is a senior internal consultant in organization effectiveness for Texaco Incorporation, she stated that placing more women on the boards of directors would help change the glass ceiling. Reasons for this include it would provide role models for senior management as a constant reminder of women's capabilities and judgments, and it would also hold senior management accountable for promoting qualified women into line in general management posts. Another way you can change the glass ceiling is understanding that women and men approach managing differently, and that both approaches may be valid and will help change the glass ceiling. According to a statistical chart titled Female to Male Ratios in Labor Force Participation in Selected Countries in 2012, there are 85 women to every 100 men in the labor force in the U.S. in 2012. If these numbers become more equal, it could benefit the businesses where inequality between genders still lies and would present new and different ideas. There are many more ways to change the glass ceiling than just these two. While these changes still make a difference, many women today still get stuck under the glass ceiling, and pre-career women are starting to wonder what this will look like for them. Suva Ezzedine, an associate professor of human resource management, reports pre-career women's concerns in the article titled The Glass Ceiling in Executive Careers. One thing she focused on was agency versus femininity. Young women start to view executive work basically against their odds and are wondering if the leadership role is too masculine for them. This is very encouraging to young women, and they shouldn't feel as if they are unable to get executive jobs because they are female. Another concern they have is executive work versus family. Young women are intimidated by executive work because it takes up a lot of time and leaves less room for personal life. Women eventually want to start families and are afraid they won't have time to work. However, women shouldn't be too frightened. In a statistical chart titled Women's Evolving Role in the Labor Force, it compares women represented in selected occupations in the U.S. in 1970 versus 2006 through 2012. This chart has shown women have gained representatives in occupations such as pharmacists, accountants, physicians and surgeons, lawyers and judges, police officers, and civil engineers, to name a few. This is very encouraging to young pre-career women today. In conclusion, I have talked about who the glass ceiling affects, which is women and minorities, and not just in the U.S., and it's important to know that this is a problem with many people all over the world. Ways that the glass ceiling can change is by placing more women on board of directors and understanding that men and women approach managing differently. There are several other ways to change and evolve the progress of the glass ceiling, and it's important to understand ways to change the glass ceiling so you can apply them to businesses you either run or work for. And pre-career women are thinking about getting jobs in the executive workforce and are afraid of being too feminine for leadership roles and balancing work with personal life. Many women are facing issues like these and more when considering entering the workforce, but are still encouraged by increasing amounts of women representatives in the labor force over time. If the glass ceiling continues, women could be discouraged to enter the business world. However, because of the recent progress, women are becoming somewhat more hopeful. We need to be aware of the glass ceiling happening and not let it continue in businesses we are involved with personally.
Note before I start, I woke up today and I have no voice, so that makes it hard to do speech, but I apologize that that's like very distracting and we'll have to see if my voice can go for 7 minutes or not, but we'll see what happens. Anyway, my name is Emma Fisher and I'm going to inform you today about the benefits and detriments of drinking coffee. So Dr. St. Luke's Hospital, James O'Keefe, who wrote the article Effects on Habitual Coffee Consumption, said that coffee after water is the most widely consumed beverage in the U.S. and is the principal source of caffeine intake among adults. He went on to explain that coffee is a complex beverage containing hundreds of compounds, so the health effects of chronic coffee intake are wide-ranging. So they fall on a scale of positive and negatives and can be all over the place. But this topic is relevant to us because as college students we fall under the age demographic of young adults. And I see college students drinking coffee all the time. Whether I'm at Jasmine's and I see people drinking coffee, or I see people posting their Starbucks on Instagram, or I see Keurigs in everyone's dorm rooms. It's just everywhere. So this relates to us, and since it's applicable to so many people, it's important that you know the effects of what coffee will have on you. I myself drink coffee, so I can speak from experience on these different effects. And I've heavily researched both sides with articles written by doctors and experts, including the impact of coffee on mood, cognitive function, performance and hydration, a review of benefits and risks by C.H.S. Rexton, the effects of habitual coffee consumption on all-cause morality by James O'Keefe, and the beneficial effects of coffee in human nutrition by G. Messina. So now we'll go over the advantages and disadvantages of coffee, starting with the advantages where we can learn the effects it has on alertness, mood, and memory. So, the first advantage to drinking coffee is that it keeps you alert and awake. Why do so many people start off their day with coffee and relate to the phrase, I'm in bed in the morning before I have my morning coffee? This is because coffee is chock full of caffeine, which keeps their minds alert and awake. Dr. C.H. Ruxton reviewed in her article 16 studies where test subjects were given 37.5 to 450 milligrams of coffee over several days, and by the end, 14 out of the 16 studies had subjects who showed improved alertness and reaction time. So if you're drinking coffee in the morning, it might be able to help you focus better in class because you're more awake to take in the information. The second advantage to drinking coffee is that it can decrease depression. Generally, people already see getting coffee as a positive experience. The smell of coffee is really nice and it kind of calms people down. And you can get a lot of different fun types of coffee and people like that. And coffee shops themselves are becoming more popular. The atmosphere of coffee shops are really calming and soothing, and people go there to study or to meet or to hang out. But is this joy deeper and more legitimate than we think? Dr. James O'Keefe found in a recent study of women ingesting less than 4 cups of coffee a day that these subjects had a significant decreased relative risk of depression. And the effects were due to caffeine because women in the same experience who had decaf coffee did not have this reduced risk. The third advantage of drinking coffee is that it has a positive effect on your memory. Jay Messina, who has written multiple articles on biology and medicine, stated that coffee has a positive effect on short-term memory by acting on your prefrontal cortex, which is on your brain. And she explained this statement through a study where some participants were given 100 milligrams of caffeine in a cup of coffee, and others were given a placebo drink with no coffee. And the participants all the participants after 20 minutes went under MRI scans and memory tests, and then the participants who had received coffee had a significant greater activation in parts of their prefrontal cortex, which include executive memory, attention, concentration, and planning. So this proves that coffee can affect your memory and just activate those parts of your brain. But don't get too excited, because cannot live off of Starbucks for the rest of your life because they're a disadvantage to drinking coffee too. The disadvantages include its addictive properties, how it affects your sleep, and how it affects your blood pressure. So we'll start with the disadvantage that you can become addicted to coffee. Dr. James O'Keefe explained in his article that regular coffee use causes mild physical dependence as evidenced by the development of tolerance, withdrawal symptoms such as headaches or irritability, and cravings with abstinence. Luckily, he went on to say that 3 cups of coffee a day or less is okay, but we should be mindful that caffeine is a drug you can become addicted to. So just make sure when you're drinking coffee, you are doing it in a balanced way. The second disadvantage to drinking coffee is that it can negatively affect your sleep. Since we already stated that coffee keeps you alert and awake, you have to be really mindful of when you're drinking coffee because it can affect your sleep patterns if you're drinking it too late at night. In addition to this already known fact, Dr. Braxton found that if you're already deprived of sleep, drinking coffee will actually have a negative effect on a sleep-restricted subject. So don't think that you can trade off your sleep hours for drinking coffee. It doesn't work that way. You need to get sleep on your own. The third disadvantage to drinking coffee was that it can increase your blood pressure. Dr. James O'Keefe stated that coffee consumption has been associated with an increase in blood pressure for caffeinated people. However, these effects on long-term coffee drinkers are so insignificant that we really can't consider them. So mainly with this effect, you want to be careful if you're new to drinking coffee. Don't go and drink like 6 cups of black coffee right away if you've never drank coffee before. And if you already have some pre-known blood pressure problems, just be careful of your coffee intake. So, as you can see, there are both benefits and detriments regarding coffee consumption. So, the next time you are drinking coffee, you consider the benefits in alertness, mood, and memory, and the disadvantages in addiction, sleep, and blood pressure. Then consider your coffee habits regarding these effects to decide if your consumption is controlled and balanced. It can be easy as college students to overlook what you're putting in your body, but with our many responsibilities, taking care of your body is one of the most important. So take in this information and choose for yourself what the best option is for you. Thank you for being patient.
According to Ferris Timmy, author of the article Medicine, Morality, and Healthcare Social Media, time spent on social media has grown exponentially, and time spent on social media sites now represents 1 in 5 minutes spent online. By a show of hands, how many of you have at least one social media site? Okay, so as you can see, social media is a popular and widely used form of communication in our society today. It is important to know and understand the positive and negative implications of this use because we use it so much. Similar to most of you, as a millennial, I too have engaged in the lives of others through social media. I also have credibility on this subject because of the research I have done. My information today comes from various news excerpts such as Social Media and Depression Link, and various journals such as the Journal of School of Violence and the Journal of Medical Internet Research. At the conclusion of my speech today, my goal is for you to understand both the pros and the cons of social media use in order to make wise decisions as you use it in the future. With this goal in mind, I'm going to begin by informing you of some of the pros of social media. One of these pros is political engagement. According to a New Media and Society Journal article written by Professors Masahiro Yamato, Matthew J. Cushion, and Francis Dalsey, social media is increasingly being used to obtain political insight and voice opinions and views on political topics. When we apply our political knowledge in social media, it enables us to engage in politics in a variety of ways, such as learning about different perspectives, maybe reconsidering particular stances on issues, and addressing uncertainty regarding certain topics and discussions in politics. Political discussion in general can also motivate us to understand political topics. Another pro to social media use is enhanced communication. Although this may seem obvious, seeing as it is social media, I thought it was a key use in social media. Social media not only provides opportunity for connection to friends and family in the it also provides connection to friends and family across the state and country. This is especially important to us during our time in college when we are distanced from loved ones. According to different news articles, another way in which social media has proven to be a pro is the fact that it has proven to help some young adults refrain from and or stop negative behavior and practices. The United States Research and Policy Center, DEMOS, reports a decrease in drinking for more than 4 in 10 young people that were polled. And social media is cited as a factor in this decrease, whether that be to it serving as a distraction to the negative practices or to being a direct deterrent to those negative practices. Furthermore, social media has also been used in helping young adults to quit smoking. In fact, research discovered that young adults who use social media to quit smoking are more successful than those who don't use social media. This can be due to the fact that we use social media a lot and we can relate more to it than other cessation programs that are trying to help us. A fourth pro in using social media, according to a news excerpt from the Dominion Post written by Susan Taylordo, is that social media can also be an effective tool for landing a job. So think of it this way. Your social media can be used as kind of a marketing tool. You can display your talents, your abilities, and to your employer who's looking at you. But it's also important to remember that it can also be used negatively if the employer can see that you have posted negative behaviors or images. Social media accounts have the potential to have a positive impression on employers or a negative impression. As is evident, there are various advantages to the use of social media, but good things can have negative effects as well. Now that you know some of the pros of social media, I'm going to inform you of the cons as well. One of the cons of social media is cyberbullying. According to the article Cyberbullying via Social Media, written by Elizabeth Whittaker and Robin Kowalski, cyberbullying is an active aggression intended to cause harm or distress. It has a repetitive quality. This article discusses how one study found that just as many students experienced their first cyberbullying experience in college as did middle schoolers. The increased use of social media apps such as Yip Yap, which seems to be popular for college students, also increases college students' vulnerability to cyberbullying. Another con of social media is that it has been shown to be linked to depression. According to a news excerpt by Pakistan Observer titled Social Media and Depression Links, a new study has found that young adults who use social media are put at a higher risk of depression. Researchers used a depression assessment tool and discovered that more than a quarter of the participants that use social media had high indications of depression, which had association with social media use. The third con to the use of social media is the susceptibility to negative influences. According to the article in the Journal of Internet Medical Research titled Friending Teens, Systematic Review of Social Media in Adolescent and Young Adult Healthcare, 85% of college students show references to alcohol on social media. In addition to this, suicidality, drugs, violence, and sexual behavior have also been displayed on social media. A fourth con of social media use, according to Katarina Love, Leora Shrub, and Lisa Rothmel in their 2015 article, involves comparing oneself to others. Social media provides an easy platform for us to portray our appearance and our lives to others, and it can be easy for us to compare ourselves to them and what they have that we don't. This isn't good because God wants us to be content with how He's created us and what He has provided us with. As a social media user myself, another con that I found significant to discuss was the fact that it can be very addicting and distracting. Have you ever found yourself trying to do homework but failing to complete it quickly due to social media distractions? Or have you ever sat down to relax on your phone for a while only to realize you look at the clock later and it's been over an hour and you've wasted a lot of time? If so, I can relate. Although social media has a lot of benefits, it can be very addicting and distracting. It is important to keep track of our time as we use it. As you can see, social media has various pros and cons. My purpose today was not to persuade you whether to use it or not to use it, but rather to inform you on its advantages and disadvantages so that you may use it wisely in the future. As a reminder, the pros of social media that I discussed were the opportunity for political engagement, enhanced communication, it assists with picking up a job, and it also provides opportunities for us to be encouraged to refrain from or stop participating in negative practices altogether. The cons I informed you of was the fact that it can increase chances of cyberbullying. It has been found to be linked to depression. It makes you susceptible to negative influence. It can cause you to compare yourself to others, and it can be addicting and distracting. This is only a handful of the ways that social media can be used both positively and negatively. Seeing as it is a popular form of communication for the millennial generation, it is important to understand its uses as we engage in our society today. The use of social media has grown exponentially, and time spent on social media sites now represents 1 in 5 minutes spent online. Have you used those 1 in 5 minutes wisely? Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Tiger Woods once said, "You can always become better." It's a very simple quote, but it's very true. You can always become better at something. Most of you, I'm sure, are familiar with the game of golf, but not all of you are probably familiar with Tiger Woods. Some of you may not even know who he is. You may recognize him from just his regular Sunday outfit, the red shirt and the black pants, or his famous fist pump, the big fist pump that he does when he wins a tournament. But still, I'm sure some of you may not know who he is, so I'm going to point out something that makes this relevant to all of you. Even if you don't know Tiger Woods, something that he can teach you all is that hard work always pays off. Tiger Woods had by far one of the best work ethics that I've ever seen, and it definitely paid off for him. Another lesson that he can teach all of you is that even if the odds are against you, you can still succeed. The information that I'll be giving you today came from multiple sources. I gained information from the article "Earl and Tiger Woods Forged a Remarkable Relationship" by Eugene Robinson. The article "What Happened" by Alan Shipnuck. The book "Tiger Woods, Professional Golfer" by Gene Kenny Williams. The article "Tiger Woods Biography" by Biography.com editors. And the article "On Tour" by TigerWoods.com. In this speech today, I will be informing you about 3 main topics. I'll talk about his early years and how he became famous. I will then transition and talk about Tiger Woods in his prime and the years that he spent definitely dominating the game of golf. And then finally, I will sum it all up, talking about his major setback that really has kind of ruined him. So now that you know what I'm going to talk about, I'll hop right in, and we'll start with his early years. This is a range from 1975 to 1996. So on December 30th, 1975, Eldrick Taunt Woods was born. Now, some of you may be asking yourself, who in the world is Eldrick Taunt Woods? Well, that is actually exactly who I'm speaking about. The name Tiger actually came from his dad, and a man that saved him in Vietnam in the war, and they called that man Tiger. And so they named their son Tiger. His parents are Earl and Coltita Woods. His dad was a black man, and his mom had some Asian and Indian descent, which kind of makes Tiger have a distinct look about him that everyone kind of notices. Tiger Woods first started playing golf at 18 months old, which is pretty bizarre because most of us cannot do anything at that point of our life. So it's pretty impressive that he was already starting to form a love for the game and playing it. He began getting famous around age 8. And a fun fact is actually, he was a feature on Good Morning America. And he actually walked out, and as a little kid, he took a club and had a ball and was hitting balls into the crowd for them. His dad was a very big influence on his life. His dad was his main teacher and mentor. He taught him many aspects of the game, but not only just about the game. His dad was always there for him and taught him many life lessons. Skipping ahead, Tiger in high school, he was very successful in high school. He started getting recognition from very major colleges during his junior year of high school. He got a letter one day in the mail from Stanford University, and I'm sure most of you know that Stanford is a very popular school when it comes to academics. They're a very intelligent school, and they have some very bright students. Tiger ended up enrolling at Stanford on a golf scholarship in 1994. He studied economics there, but his main reason there was for golf, of course, where he succeeded very much. Around that same time, Tiger Woods ended up teaming up with Butch Harmon, who was one of the world's most popular golf coaches. Butch Harmon teaches many other professional golfers today, so it was very good that Tiger teamed up with him because it built a lot of his success. One struggle that Tiger faced during his college career was racism. Golf wasn't a game for African Americans, was what a lot of people believed. They expected your typical white male, dressed up in the knickers and everything, and the fancy hats and fancy pants and everything, and they weren't accepting that there was an African American man coming onto the stage and really succeeding and beating a lot of the other people. That did not stop him though. He ended up winning the U.S. Amateur, which is the biggest tournament for amateur golfers. This ultimately made him the #1 amateur in the world and led him to playing in his first Masters. And the Masters is the most popular tournament in the world. It's the biggest tournament, and it's the one that everyone dreams of winning. According to one of the articles, GQ magazine predicted that Tiger Woods' racial heritage combined with his golf abilities would enable him to be one of the most influential people of the future. And that was definitely a true statement because he by far was one of the most influential people of the future in the golf world. In 1996, Tiger Woods, he won an NCAA championship. So that ended his early years before his professional career. So now that we know his early years, we can now look into his professional career and his very popular success. First, I will talk about the endorsement deals that Tiger Woods had. He signed endorsement deals with Nike and Titleist, which are two very popular golf brands. The first PGA tournament that Tiger Woods played in was in 1996, and he played in the Greater Milwaukee Open. He did not do so well. He tied for 60th place, in fact. But that was just the beginning. Later that year, he got his first PGA Tour win in Las Vegas. With that win, he was able to play in his second Masters and his first major as a professional golfer. He ended up winning the Masters in 1997, and he set a very impressive record of a 12-stroke victory, which was the biggest victory of all time. Tiger had also a lot more success than all the other three majors, because there are 4 majors in golf. There's the Masters, the U.S. Open, the British Open, and the PGA Championship. Tiger won 4 Masters, 3 U.S. Opens, 3 British Opens, and 4 PGA Championships, which is very, very good. However, he's still 4 majors shy of the all-time record, which is held by Jack Nicklaus. Tiger's still chasing him today, but it'll be very hard to catch him, since he is coming to the end of his career. Another impressive statistic that Tiger has is he is 3 wins shy of Sam Snead for the all-time wins list. I believe that he will still be able to break that record, but we'll have to just wait and see. Another very impressive statistic is Tiger Woods spent 683 weeks as the world's #1 ranked golfer in the world. Something that kind of started the slowdown of his career was in 2006, Tiger Woods' dad, Earl, passed away from a major heart attack. This was very detrimental to him because he quoted, "He was the person I looked up to more than anyone." Just because, like I said earlier, he had a very popular impact on Tiger and really was always there for him, so that really hit Tiger hard. I will now talk about his major setback. In 2009, Tiger got in very big trouble for having multiple affairs with his wife, Ellen Nordegren. This was all over the media. Tiger was getting so much criticism from this, and it just ruined his career. He hasn't won a major since 2008, and I'm not sure if he ever will. But he's still chasing Jack Nicklaus's record, and it's not out of the picture yet. But it's been a long time. 2008 was a while ago, so it definitely shows you how big of an impact this had on his career. He's also lost many endorsements, and then he's also battled injuries and swing changes. Finally, as a review of what I talked about his early years and him and his childhood. I then talked to you about his prime and the success that he had in the golf world. And then finally I talked about his downfall and everything else that followed that. So to conclude, I'll give you another quote from Tiger Woods. I've exceeded a few of my goals, but I'm behind on a couple of others. This is stating that he's not done yet and he will continue to try to complete his goals. Thank you.
Good morning. Play is as natural to children as breathing. It is a universal expression of children, and it can transcend differences in ethnicity, language, and other aspects of culture. This quote comes from the book School-Based Therapy, written by two licensed child psychologists, Charles E. Schaefer and Athena Drews. You may be asking yourself, what is play therapy? Play therapy is a way to help children express their thoughts and feelings, and many children who seek this therapy have diagnosis of trauma or even autism. Play is a natural medium for children, so psychologists use this as a means to help them. Activities like drawing, painting, playing house, playing with toys like cars, or even sand tables are all mediums of play therapy. So what does this have to do with you? At one point we were all children, and I'm sure we all used to play games like house and like board games with other children. And I'm sure many of us would like to have children in the future. But aside from past and future endeavors, techniques of play therapy can correlate to our busy college stressful lives. I have studied abnormal child psychology here at Grace, and this topic really interested me. My sources come from a book called School-Based Therapy by Charles Schaefer and Athena Drews, a case study by Josephine Orrit and Virginia Ryan, and then another book called Play Therapy Today, Contemporary Practice with Individuals and Groups by Florence Routledge. Today you will learn about play therapy in different settings. Play therapy in schools, with children, individual and in group sessions. Play therapy occurs on multiple stages, like schools. And in schools, the school counselor uses play therapy to communicate with students, to help build skills in the classroom and peer relationships, as well as remove emotional and behavioral obstacles to learning. There are four different approaches used in schools. One is called child-centered approach. This approach is a non-directive approach where the goal of the counselor is to see the world through the eyes of the child. Drews says that this technique is used in elementary settings because it engages the child at a developmental level and in his or her own language. Another approach is called Alderian play therapy. In this approach, the counselor is active and encouraging throughout the play. Sometimes the therapist will actually play with the child. And this therapy is best for children ages 4 to 9. Another is called cognitive behavioral therapy, and this is a directive approach where the therapist or the counselor uses scenes and reenacts them with the child, scenes from the child's life and reenacts them with them. And this is usually most successful with patients with trauma diagnosis. Working in schools requires special education on how to communicate and work well with children, including children with special needs. So this brings us to our case study of John. Here's a little background information about John. John was 6.5 years old when he was put into play therapy, and he was diagnosed with autism when he was 2.5. John had random outbursts of energy where he would clap and scream and nobody would know why. John was mostly nonverbal, so communication was hard, and he never seemed to play with any other children, even his siblings. He kept to himself most of the time. John started attending play therapy sessions, and as they progressed, he became confident and didn't ask for help as much as he did in the beginning. John always used to pick the same toys to play with, and he usually stuck to himself and didn't invite the therapist to play with him. But in the 9th session, he did decide to play with new toys like dolls and play food. Throughout therapy, John improved with his relationships with others, especially the psychologists. And by the end, Orrit and Ryan found that John eventually let the therapist play with him. His outbursts of energy were still there, however, not as frequent. and play therapy can be effective in both individual cases like John's and in group settings. The book Play Therapy Today, Contemporary Practice with Individual Groups and Carers discusses individual and group settings. Individual therapy gives the therapist time to meet and talk with the parents about the child and his or her behavior, and this in turn creates a safer, more confident environment for the child. Individual-based therapy usually allows children to express their ideas and feelings and feel safer about doing so. Individual-based therapy can use methods of play such as toys, dress up, storytelling, and play food, or even sand trays. These methods all help with children who have experienced trauma and help express their feelings or fears or even stressors. Group therapy, on the other hand, tends to help more children with social problems or children who have problems relating to others. Methods used in group settings include dramas, artwork, or physical team activities, and they all usually center around a central theme, appropriate play or building healthy relationships. Play therapy on an individual level has perceived positives, as does the group settings. Therapy in all environments focus on helping children overcome problems and difficulties developmentally, socially, and academically. To wrap up, let's review. Play therapy uses methods of therapy that are natural means to children. Play therapy takes place in schools with children with different diagnoses like John, and can also take place individually and in group settings. As college students, we live very busy and stressful lives. Some of the athletes in here can testify to that. Play therapy can help with this too. Adult artwork and coloring books, as well as sand trays or music, are all ways to help de-stress and express our thoughts or feelings. In conclusion, play therapy helps children on multiple levels, and I challenge you to try some of the same methods in your own life. Thank you.
Alright, my name is Brooklyn Harrison. I chose a topic that's kind of broad, but it's just something that has been fascinating to me and something that interests me personally, and that's the stages of life and how we grow as humans. The three main points that I'm going to be covering are pre-birth, childhood, adolescence and adulthood, and then death. Age is a seasoned trickster. To our parents, we will always be children. Within ourselves, the same desires of youth, the same aspirations of adolescence will last a lifetime. Only to the young, blinded by our gray hair and slow pace, do we appear old and increasingly beyond the pale. And that's a quote by Alex Moore. I'm sure most of you have a general understanding of the stages of life and how it works. However, you may not know the details of how we're changing and growing emotionally, physically, and mentally. Once you understand the stages of life in detail, your outlook on life your outlook as yourself as a person right now at the stage that you're at may change. Pre-birth. So when a mommy and daddy love each other very much, they create a baby. The pre-birth, the child who has not been born yet could become anything, and thus holds for all humanity the principle of what we all may become in our lives. Birth. When a child is born, it instills in its parents and other caregivers a sense of optimism, a sense that this new life may bring something new and special into the world. Hence, the newborn represents a sense of hope we all nourish inside of ourselves to make the world a better place. Infancy occurs at the age of 0 to 3. The infant is a vibrant and seemingly unlimited source of energy. Babies thus represent an inner dynamo of humanity, ever fueling the fires of the human life cycle with new channels of psychic power. The infant is learning something new every day. It begins to crawl, walk, and also talk. Now that you have a clear understanding of the beginning of life, let's look at early childhood. This is a time where humans are learning, growing, and interacting every day. Early childhood begins around the age of 3, and then it's 3 to 6, and then when young children play, they recreate the world. They take what is and combine it with what is possible to fashion events that have never been seen before in the history of the world. As such, they embody the principle of innovation and transformation that underlies every single creative act that has occurred in the course of civilization. Middle childhood is the age of 6 through 8. In middle childhood, the sense of inner subjective self develops for the first time, and this self is alive with images taken from the outer world and brought up from the depths of the unconscious. This imagination serves as a source of creative inspiration in later life for artists, writers, scientists, and anyone who finds their days and nights enriched and for having nurtured a deep inner life. Late childhood, ages 9 through 11. Older children have acquired a wide range of social and technical skills that enable them to come up with marvelous strategies and inventive solutions for dealing with increasing pressures that society places on them. This principle of ingenuity lies in that part of ourselves that ever seeks new ways to solve practical problems and cope with everyday responsibilities. Adulthood is when we develop the most, where we make life decisions and are able to become our own people. Adolescence occurs within the ages of 12 and 20. The biological event of puberty unleashes a powerful set of changes in adolescent body that reflect themselves in a teenager's sexual, emotional, cultural, and/or spiritual passion. Adolescence passion thus represents a significant touchstone for anyone who is seeking to reconnect with their deepest inner zeal for life. This leads to early adulthood, which is within the ages of 20 to 35. It takes enterprise for young adults to accomplish their many responsibilities, including finding a home and mate, establishing a family or circle of friends, and/or getting a good job. This principle of enterprise thus serves us at any stage of life when we need to go out in the world and make our mark. Mature adulthood, which is the ages of 50 through 80. Those in mature adulthood have raised families, established themselves in their work life, and become contributors to the betterment of society through volunteerism, mentorship, and other forms of philanthropy. All of humanity benefits from their benevolence. Moreover, we can learn from their example to give more of ourselves to others. Late adulthood, 80 and up. Those with long lives have acquired a rich repertoire of experiences that they can use to help guide others. Elders thus represent the source of wisdom that exists in each of us, helping us to avoid the mistakes of the past while reaping the benefits of life's lessons. Now that you understand how quickly life actually goes by and how fast we have reached the end of our lives, late adulthood is where we are very wise and have undergone all the stages of life. Death completes the cycle of life. Those in our lives who are dying or who have died teach us about the value of living. They remind us not to take our lives for granted, but to live each moment of life to its fullest, and to remember that our own small lives form a part of a greater whole. So to conclude, I reviewed pre-birth, childhood, adulthood, late adulthood to death. Life is an incredible journey. We do not know exactly what the future holds, but we know what to prepare for. We know the stages of life and how they make us who we are. Thank you.
That's good. So, I'll be talking about helping elders. And my attention getter is, I started wanting to help elders because I helped my grandma and Tita when they was very sick. And they was in the nursing home and at home. And I always wanted to be by their side at all times. So they really caught my attention because I work at a nursing home at home. So every time I used to go there, help them out, and they used to just express how willing it is to help elders and what they need from you. So I will be talking about how it is a good outlook on you and why it is strong to help how is it strong to help elders and what is good outlook on helping others. So helping others is a fulfillment of special needs and requirements that are unique to senior citizens. Elderly care enforces the social and personal requirements for senior citizens who need assistance with daily activities and health care. It is important in the design of housing, service, activities, training, such should be truly customer centered. Elderly care has been the responsibility of family members and who has provided with an extended family home. And now after talking about helping others, we are going to look at a good way of doing that. And what is a good outlook on helping others? That they would like for you to entertain them, give them rides, laugh, smile with them, listen to them, give you a good outlook, and it gives you a good background on yourself. So, and most of all, they like for you to help them clean, writing them letters, read to them, make them feel loved, make them feel cared for. And the elderly person needs to feel safe, remain close to other people, and believe that their life continues to be meaningful. And they also want you to support a positive outlook with a particular measures. They are now we are going to talk about why it's important to help others. Helping others continue to take a responsibility for themselves by discussing their needs and time. Help them overcome an obstacle to their leisure activities that might cause or make them control themselves. Make sure they take their medication exactly as prescribed. Help them overcome any of their fears and making any mistakes. And after talking about what is important, now we're going to talk about how this looks on you. So how this looks on you is working with others provide many intangible rewards that you won't discover in any healthcare. Working with elders is a very important job for yourself, and it gives you a real difference in your own life. By assisting the elders with personal care and helping them retain their independence, you are providing a virtuous service to your patients. Another one is you also are uniquely suited to be an advocate for them. Meaning by an advocate is a person who publicly supports or recommends a particular cause or policy, great supporter, and they want you to feel champion to them, a fighter to them, because if you're making them stronger, it causes them to make them fight as much as you are helping them. It is a good way of helping elders because helping them is a great way to succeed you. Because without helping elders, who would help us? So the important to help others, it will look like for your personality it's a good personality to help others at all times. If you aren't there to help, ask yourself, who will help us? Who will attend us? Who will provide for us? And we all know our grandparents who could be concerned as elders. Elders are a big part of our society. And going home all the time, helping my aunts for several weeks, months, it really caught my attention that elders mean a lot to everyone. They catch your attention, they want you to laugh and smile, they want you to listen to their life story on how they used to work or how they used to do anything. But being sick in a nursing home, it really makes them feel down without anyone feeling for them. Because if anyone didn't want to help with them, why resist? And elders take that as a sad or catching them as feelings. So if you're not there helping them, it will just look like you just don't care for them. They also want you to make them feel like they're loved. Elders are a big part of me, and it also expresses how I want to be when I grow up. Because nursing, I want to do that as well. And just being in a nursing home with all of those people, I help them paint their nails, do their hair, clean them, bathe them, walk around with their nurses that give them medication. Seeing them sick, it just, it hurts you, but you also can make them fight and keep being there supportive for them and fighting for them and just being there for them at all times. So as you got how it looks on you, how is it important to you, and how is it a good outlook on you. My conclusion will be, today we looked at helping other elders. A good outlook on how to do that. Why is it important to help others? And what it will look like for your personality, for your personal to help others.
Everybody, I know we're all ready to get out of here, so just bear with me for one last speech here. I want you all to imagine that you're back in high school, and it's lunchtime. You're back in the cafeteria waiting to get your food, and all of a sudden, 2 of your classmates burst into the cafeteria with guns, and they start shooting. You jump into a storage closet with the people around you, and you crouch down so as not to be seen. You stay this way for 2 hours. This is what happened to Matthew Depew, a student at Columbine High School on April 20th, 1999. I'm sure you have all heard about the Columbine High School shooting. As future parents, you should know what can be done to help prevent similar incidents. My information comes from an article called Musings in the Wake of Columbine by Mary Ann Raywood and Libby Oshiyama, the article Anatomy of a Massacre by Matt Bai, and the article What Can Be Done About School Shootings, a Review of the Evidence by Rainey Borum. Today, I am going to tell you about what occurred on April 20th, 1999, possible causes for the shooting, and how this shooting has changed schools in America. Now let's learn more about the details of the Columbine High School shooting and find out what happened to Matthew Depew and his friends in the storage closet off the cafeteria. Around 11 o'clock on a Tuesday morning, Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold approached their school armed with grenades and guns. The boys lit firecrackers and threw them towards the school entrance. First, they approached a girl by the name of Rachel Scott. Rachel didn't even have a chance to plead for her life when they shot her and killed her. Next was a boy named Dylan Rogar. Dylan tried to get away, however, he wasn't quick enough. The boys started shooting at others, injuring some and killing others. Next, the boys entered the cafeteria. According to Matt Bai, there were approximately 500 students present. Harris and Klebold threw pipe bombs and fired bullets, while students scattered to find shelter. Some hid in bathrooms, and some, like Matthew, hid in closets. After the cafeteria, the boys wandered to other various parts of the school, including science labs, stairways, and the library. In the library, Harris and Klebold specifically targeted the jocks. They also went after students hiding under desks and were heard asking students if they believed in God. One teacher, Dave Sanders, was near the cafeteria when the first shots were fired. Because of his bravery, Sanders was able to warn many students before he himself was shot. He died just as SWAT team members were rescuing him. Rescue arrived just minutes within the first 911 call. They pulled kids from closets, classrooms, and bathrooms. However, some students could not tell the difference between SWAT members and the shooters, so out of fear refused to come out until school administrators came to retrieve them. All students were bused to a nearby elementary school to be checked in and claimed by their parents. Harris and Klebold shot themselves in the library that day, leaving a suicide note saying not to blame anyone else but themselves for their actions. "This is the way we wanted to go out," they wrote, according to Matt Bai. Now that you know what happened that day, you are probably wondering what caused the boys to act this way. Let's look at some of the causes of the Columbine shooting. One thing many people jump to point fingers at is the availability of guns to the boys. Others are quick to blame violent movies and violent video games. Some say it was due to lack of parental involvement in their lives. Mary Ann Raywood and Libby Oceana, however, believe differently. In their article, Musings in the Wake of Columbine, they talk about how small versus large schools make a difference. Violence is less likely to occur in small schools. This is because larger schools are more often associated with disorder and violence. You might be wondering, how can something be done about this? We cannot eliminate large schools, so what can we do? According to Raywood and Oceana, teaching about acceptance is the key. We must remind ourselves, and even our future children, that God loves everyone, and there is no exception. Since we have now covered possible causes, let's look at how the Columbine shooting has impacted schools in America today, and what precautions are being taken to keep this incident from happening again. After Columbine, schools all around the country started taking extra security measures to ensure it doesn't happen again. According to Randy Borum, 53% of schools started checking lockers regularly for things like guns or drugs. Borum also states that 90% of schools have staff present in the hallways during passing periods, and exits and entrances to the schools are now locked during the day. Understanding warning signs are also important to preventing school shootings. Schools started making crisis response plans for how to handle events like the Columbine shooting if they happen. My purpose today has not just been to inform you about what happened at the Columbine shooting, but also to tell you what caused it and how it has impacted schools in America. On April 20th in 1999, at Columbine High School, 13 people were killed and over 20 were injured. One main cause is the smaller versus larger schools issue, and we can combat this by teaching acceptance of all people. Because of this incident, school security has greatly increased, and many new security measures have been taken to prevent any more possible events like this. Thankfully, the student who was hiding in the storage closet, Matthew Depew, made it out safely with his friends. However, not all were that fortunate. If you only remember one thing from this speech today, I hope it's that teaching acceptance is the key to preventing more school shootings. Don't forget that God loves everyone, and as Christians, it is our job to do the